Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you are new. On today's video, I'm going to be recommending to you the books that you want to be recommended. Okay, I have a huge stack of books here. They're falling apart and this is not even all of them. Many weeks ago on my Instagram page, Manganet with 2 T's, go follow me if you haven't already, I asked you guys, what books do you want it to be recommended? I left that box thing where you can type and I said, recommend me a book that ... and you wrote the things that you wanted to have a book for. Isn't that the most brilliant idea ever? I think it is. I actually forgot until today because now I'm recording this book because I remembered I actually had that one question that I never did anything with it. So let's get started. I have all the things that I asked you guys what you wanted to be recommended. I went through my bookshelves. I found books for all of them except 3 of them I don't have a thing for. So I have 21 books to recommend you based on the things that you are looking for in a book. Now, one thing that I hate about these recommendation videos in general is when they are like 45 minutes long. So I'm gonna try keep it very short and simple. Some of them I'm probably not even gonna say anything about them because they are so self-explanatory when I show you which book it is for which category. And another thing that I want to mention is that they are not necessarily my all-time favorites. They're just books that fit into that category that you asked for. So let's get started. Recommend me a book with weird houses, not including The Turn of the Key or The Girl Before. The book that I have for this is actually the only one that I don't own despite being one of my favorite books, and that is Lock Every Door by Rayleigh Sager. Weird houses, it's set in New York, it's a thriller, go read it if you want weird houses. Recommend me a book that is suspenseful, quick read, good drama, non-stop. This was actually a tricky one because there's so many parameters for this one, but I settled on The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. It's again a thriller, multiple perspectives. It's drama in the way that the story that intertwines these characters and their past stories, it's so dramatic. It's very quick read. It's non-stop in the way that you just want to find out what happened. Better yet, you know what happened from the beginning of the story. You just want to know who it happened to and who did it. So it's very intriguing in that way. Recommend me a book that has a complicated relationship between siblings. Another one that was a bit tricky for me, and I settled on Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This relationship is between 2 sisters, and it's complicated in the way that 20 years ago, one of the sisters disappeared, and now 20 years later, some other girl disappears, and the sister that remained thinks that the 2 cases might be connected, and when she starts doing her own investigation, she starts uncovering some truths about her sister that she didn't know about, and it revolves around that. Then I was asked for a book that the story or part of the story is set in a prison. I never read anything like that, but I love prison shows, behind bars, locked up abroad. I love those prison things on the TV. So if you do have a recommendation of a book that is set or partially set in a prison, please let me know. Recommend me a book that is about recurrent dreams or prophetic dreams. And the first thing that came to my mind when I read this one was The Shadow Friend by Alex North. It's very suspenseful. I don't want to even tell you what it's about, but dreams are a big part of the story. Recommend me a book that is set in a camping or in a forest. And for this one, obviously, I have to recommend The Troop by Nick Cutcher. It's a bunch of young kids, 5 I think, that go on a camping scout trip with one adult, and then disgusting things start happening. There's this disease, infectious, very highly transmitted things, but the whole thing is set in an island, I believe in Canada, so it is as much camping and outdoorsy and forest as it gets. Recommend me a book that has children as the main character. Be Prepared by Vera Brosgol. This is a graphic novel and it's all in tones of green. It's beautiful. I must warn you, it's a little bit heartbreaking. I was not expecting that when I read it. Straight away, in the first 2 pages, you already feel your heart aching, but it's a beautiful story and it's fun and it's very quick to read, despite the fact that it's not the smallest graphic novel you can get, but it's very nice. I really like this book. Recommend me a book with a super easy writing style. Again But Better by Christine Riccio. This is about a girl that goes abroad to study? Does she go abroad? Exactly. She goes to London. She's American and she goes to London for a semester to study in university. It's very intriguing. I wasn't expecting the twist that this took at the end. I really liked it. I think I gave it 5 stars back then when I read it, but it is very easy to read. It's very simple, plain, normal words that we use every day. Very easy writing, which is what you asked for. Recommend me a book that has LGBT characters. Ziggy, Stardust and Me by James Brandon. This has a stunning, beautiful cover. Look at that, like, oh my god, I can't even. And it's about 2 boys and it's set in the 70s. Recommend me a book that is about a cliché romance, cute, and is translated to Portuguese. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This book is obviously the British edition, but it is also translated to Portuguese. Most people have read this by now. It's awesome, it's cute, it makes you feel warm inside. It's also funny and not predictable, which is something very difficult to accomplish in a romance. Obviously, you know how it's gonna end, but the details that happen throughout the story, not predictable at all, and the characters are sassy and fun. Recommend me the best book you ever read. Now, this is not fair to ask. How does one choose the best book they've ever read? That's every reader's problem. It's just impossible. However, I had to settle on this one. For now, no one is surprised. I needed to include this in one of these categories, so here it is, The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. Recommend me a book where the characters are not big pussies and the story is very intriguing. Another one that took me a hot minute to figure out which book met both of these characteristics, because obviously it's not like all the books have pussy characters, but it needs to be very intriguing and I wanted to take this into a certain direction. So the book that I chose for this one was Illuminate by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman. Now, in case you've been living under a rock all this time, this book is written in a very original format. I wouldn't even know how to classify this writing format. So it is very intriguing because of that. But also the story is set in space. And even though it's a young adult and we are following 2 teenagers, they are not pussy at all. They are trying to save their planet and risking their lives and thinking outside the box. They are very clever. I think this book meets the criteria perfectly. Next one, simple. Just recommend me a thriller. And for this one, I chose Verity by Colin Hoover. This is a thriller that I think will make happy both usual thriller readers, people who read a lot of thrillers and know all the plot twists and all the things, but as well people who never read a thriller or read 1 or 2 and never really got into the genre. They don't see what the craziness is about reading thrillers. This is a good thriller as well to initiate in the thriller reading process. So I think this one would appeal both sides of the spectrum. It has amazing reviews. Obviously, not everyone likes it, but most people really like this book. It has really high reviews and it's very captivating. It's a page turner. I read this all in one go. It's amazing. Please give it a try. It's about this girl that goes into a house to finish writing the novel that a famous author started, but now she got sick. So she's like the ghostwriter that is finishing that novel. It's not about the novel itself. It's about what happens in the house, and we are following the life of the ghostwriter inside that house together with the husband of the writer that is sick. Next up, I have 2 recommendations that I wasn't able to find anything for. So again, if you have recommendations for this, let me know and let everyone else know by leaving a comment down below. The first one is recommend me a book that is set in the 18th century. And the second one, I was actually surprised when I realized that I never read anything like this, I think, which is a shame. And I never realized this until I tried finding a book, which is a book with a romance between 2 women. So I read lots of books that have LGBT characters, including lesbian women and things, but I don't think I've ever read a book that is actually focused on the lesbian romance or bisexual romance or whatever, but between 2 women. I think all the books that I read that included that was just like, here's Maria, she's gay, but it's not about her or her story. So again, if you have a book that is a romance between 2 women, let me know in the comments, because it shocked me actually that we read so many gay books about gay men, but not gay women. recommend me a book that is a romance between neighbors. I twisted this one a little bit because I couldn't find one that was exactly between neighbors, so I settled on The Flat Share by Beck O'Leary. Why is it not exactly between neighbors? Because they are actually living together, they are sharing the bed in this apartment, but they never see each other because they each have half of the day only. So technically they're kind of neighbors in the way that they don't really know each other, despite the fact that they live in the same apartment. It's very funny, the characters are very relatable, and this book had me giggle out loud a few times. Recommend me a book about witches or wizards. I'm gonna be very basic here. You all know I don't read fantasy, or at least not anymore. I used to, but then I stopped. So I'm gonna be very basic, and I'm just gonna discreetly point out the entire Harry Potter series. Recommend me a book that is easy for non-English native speakers to start reading in English. For this one, I chose Regretting You by Colin Hoover. Now, when it comes to start reading in a language that is different from your native language, I always think that the best way of starting doing it is by reading something you will enjoy. Some people even recommend reading one of your favorite books, except in English in this case. But that just seems a bit boring. I'm not a big fan of rereads, but if you are, that might work for you. For me, it seems a bit boring. So I go a step further and I say just read something that you like. If you love thrillers, read a thriller. If you love romances, read a romance. If you love 17th century kings and queens romances, then read that. Just read something that goes straight into the things that you usually love, and I think that will increase the odds of you enjoying the book and you familiarizing yourself much easier with reading in English. Now, one thing that I do absolutely not recommend for starting reading in English, even if you love it, is fantasy. Because of the world building, because of all the words and terms and animals and things that don't exist in real life. If you are not used to reading English and then you go read about weird things in English, I think it's gonna be hard to follow and hard to understand what is happening as well, because lots of fantasy books are written in a very dramatical, poetic writing style, which I don't think it's gonna be easy to follow if it's your first go at English. So read something set in this world, but something that you will love. Honestly, I think the easiest of them all is gonna be contemporaries or thrillers, just because it's as in this world as it gets. So I'm recommending Regretting You by Colin Hoover. It's about a mother's and daughter relationship and things that happened in the past and how that influences the present. It's a little heartbreaking at the end and is very beautiful. Recommend me a book to cry your eyes out. A Monster Call by Patrick Ness. And if you want to go a little bit further in the pain department and cry a few more tears, watch the movie adaptation after you're done with this book. Recommend me a book that makes you think about life. This is Me Letting You Go by Heidi Priebe. It's a really short book. It is about the end of a relationship mostly, but it's focused on the loving yourself part of ending a relationship. Like that relationship finished, but don't blame him, don't blame yourself or her. Just accept it, move on, and even though it's not a recipe, it's not a how to move on, it's things that make you think about life, exactly what this person asked for in the recommendation, but in a positive way, and thinking and realizing that not all is lost and life goes on and you can still be happy even if you have a heartbreak. Recommend me a book about crazy women, and what better book for this one than You Are Not Alone by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This book specifically, first of all, these two women, the authors, they're a bit crazy as well, because every story they come up with, I don't know, again, it's one of those people that I don't know what they eat for breakfast, but whatever they do, they need to keep doing that. This book in specific, it is about two sisters that something is going on there and they connect to this other lady and the story goes from there. I don't want to spoil anything about this book. The best part of this book is not knowing what's happening. You don't even know what this story is about. The synopsis doesn't give anything away, so I'm not gonna give anything away either. Just know that this does indeed follow two very crazy women. Recommend me a book about someone who is deaf or doesn't speak. A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. This book, I read this ages ago, but if I recall correctly, it's about a boy. They're very young, they're like 14 or something. The boy is deaf, doesn't hear, and the girl has selective mutism. So this nails both of them in the head, not the characters, the recommendation points. Recommend me a book that is light, funny, and with a positive message. Pumpkinheads by Rowell. Again, this is a graphic novel. It has the most beautiful, stunning colors. It is very funny, the characters are very funny. It's set in Halloween in a pumpkin patch. It gives you all those cozy fall vibes. It's nice, I love this book. The story is so cute. It does have a positive message in the way that it transmits you the feeling that even when you think it's the end, most often it's not, and the happiness is right in front of you. Lastly, but definitely not the least, we have Recommend Me a Book that is a page turner and you can't put down. And for this one, I had to go. There were so many options I could go with this one for this category, by the way. Some of them I already mentioned in the stack, but for this one, I chose The One by John Marrs. One of my favorite books, read it this year, don't regret it. Automatically one of my favorite authors at the moment. This is about this dystopian world where there is a DNA test that matches people together. They match you to your one true love in life, and there is only one match for each person. In this book, we are following 5 couples that were matched through the system and how that changed life as they knew it. And there you go, guys, 21 book recommendations of things that you wanted to be recommended. Leave in the comments down there if you agree with these recommendations, in case you read some of these books already. Let me know if you got curious to read certain books now that you know a little bit more of what they're about based on just these topics. Talk to me in the comments, and I'll see you very soon here on this channel for another video. Bye!